sad scene, frankly, and it's not overstating it to say this is a major failure overall for the country.
Chris Wallace, I'm trying to think ahead a little bit as to how does this end?
Well, I think that at some point they're going to regain control of Capitol Hill and regain control. It sounds amazing that we're even saying these words, regain control of the House and Senate chamber, and they'll go back to the certification of the electors. I think an interesting question, as we had pointed out, the objectors, led by about 140 in the House and about a dozen, maybe 13, 14 in the Senate, led by Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, had talked about objecting to as many as 5 or 6 states, the so-called swing states, starting with Arizona, which we were on right now, and a process, given the fact that there's 2 hours of debate allowed, and then particularly in the House with all the crowds and COVID, it takes an hour or so to vote, that each one of these objections could take 3 or 4 hours. You had 6 states, 3 or 4 hours. Even I can do that math. We're talking about the possibility of 24 hours. I wonder whether this may shut down some of the objections, and having done 1 or 2, whether they may feel they've made their point and go on. But obviously they can't begin again until they regain control of the Capitol building, and once they do, I assume they will go forward with Article 2 of the Constitution, which calls for the counting of the electoral vote and the certification of Joseph R. Biden Jr. as the 46th President of the United States.
Okay, Chris, I do want to bring back Griff Jenkins. Griff, you made the point after you interviewed the gentleman from Tampa that they were promised something, and they had just found out that Mike Pence decided not to do what the president had asked him to do. Right before President Trump tweeted about supporting the Capitol Police, he said this on Twitter: Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. Griff Jenkins with an update.
Yeah, that's right. Dana, I want to tell you, the sentiment in the streets is really getting to a different level. What's happening here at 3rd and Constitution, as you can see all the way up the hill, the police obviously dealing with the situation in the Capitol, but here,
that is we the people's house. That is the United States of America Capitol.
Okay,
taxpayer.
I gotta let you. Thank you very much. So, Dana, I'm talking to the people out here, and obviously they're very, very upset. We'll throw it back to you while they deal with the situation here.
All right, thank you, Griff. Congressman Adam Kinzinger is on the phone with us now. Congressman, you've been evacuated, I believe. Can you give us an update from where you are?
Yeah, I'm not going to say my location, but I'll tell you it's a mess out here. I hear a lot of non-lethal munitions going.
Đang leo lên. Nó không biết tại sao mà làm vậy, không biết. Cái người mà bỏ dây xuống là không biết là của bên cái bên đó Mỹ Tình hay là cái đám nào không biết. Đúng là cái tình trạng này đó là thằng tàu nó giật dây, nó đứng nó bỏ tiền ra giật dây hết. Đúng đó, nội chiến rồi thầy thì cộng sản nó thành công luôn. Đúng
không có cái vấn đề mà giai cấp nữa. Kiểu vậy y như cái chủ nghĩa cộng sản á, nó làm y chang mấy thằng các chủ nào giờ nó làm y chang như giờ nó bỏ lực buộc luôn rồi.
Ồ, bây giờ nó leo vô đông rồi. ông Trung ông tweet là hãy can đảm bình tĩnh trong cái peaceful, tức là trong cái hoàn cảnh cái là hòa bình chứ đừng có làm loạn á.
Có một số thấy ổn quá, nhưng mà cái này làm chi nó cũng chen lộn vô tùm lum hết, cũng không biết.
Đúng.
Ông vô cái này đâu để gì, ông đeo nhà ít chen vô chứ.
Cái đám nó có cái đám nó có cố vấn của Tàu Cộng, nó cố vấn. Ồ, bây giờ nó cho cái xác vô đông á.
Mà ông Trump thì ông bỏ lại thì trong hòa bình mà.
Đúng.
Sao đi về đó? Hòa bình đặt lúc cứ về đó.
Phải ông Trung ông nói vậy đó, stay peaceful. Tại ông Trung ông ra lệnh vậy thì người ta bỏ cuộc rồi.
Came out here, and then of course the situation you're seeing, which is a totally different level of violence than what's happening out here, where we're being heckled. But inside that Capitol, obviously a different situation. There is a lot of, as you can see, this gentleman's yelling at me saying, "Fake news, Bill." And if you listen to the president's speech today, he began that speech by going after the media, and he ended it by going after the media, and he talked about the media all the way through it. And now that message from the president clearly is being reiterated by many of the supporters out here as we walk in the streets and try and tell their story. Bill?
Thank you, Griff. Griff Jenkins on the sidewalk there. Going to get to Mike Tobin in a moment, so stand by, Mike, for that. But first, Andy McCarthy has been waiting patiently. And Andy, you have such a brilliant legal mind, and you have a way with words that, frankly, is a gift from above.
Once they form a line, that's the line where the conflict takes place, and ultimately you'll see the bottles thrown over the top, you'll see the pepper spray come out at that line that they formed. A lot of people show up at an event like this, and clearly some people showed up here today looking for a conflict. So the police generally will try to stand down, be as low profile as possible to avoid any friction. But that moment they show up, and the moment they show up in force, the people who showed up here looking for a fight get that fight, and you get all the bad images that get splashed all over, everything from the internet to cable news.
Unfortunately, Mike, you have too much experience on the streets watching protests across the country and around the world from your previous time in the Middle East. Mike, thank you. Mike Tobin there, the Vice President, Mike Pence.
The police, they had drawn down their weapons and were evacuating the House floor when I was there. After we evacuated, so it was hard to tell. There were shots. It sounded like it may be tear gas. There were shots that as the windows were breaking on the doors of the House floor, it sounded like a firearm, and so it was really hard to tell whether there was any firearms being used in the immediate vicinity of the House floor.
Understood, and that can be confusing. Can you see a monitor where you are? Can you see Fox News?
I am watching Fox News right now. There's a really handsome guy.
Okay, so well, this noted. This is brand new video from the floor of the Senate, which shows half a dozen protesters inside. Can you explain under any conditions how the security on the U.S. Capitol could allow this to happen?
Yeah, I can. I think the security, I think the officers were told not to use lethal force unless they saw an armed person or lethal force was being used against them. And so when they are overwhelmed by tens of thousands of protesters coming through the U.S. Capitol. The decision not to use lethal force, I think, was a wise decision. We can repair the damage to the U.S. Capitol. We are not going to bring back lives, and I commend the police for their restraint and just hope that the protesters disband soon.
Ken Buck, thank you, sir. Republican from Colorado. We'll be back in touch with you in your office and to all your colleagues. Men and women there in the U.S. Capitol building, be safe, okay? Thank you. Back to Bret Baier, getting some more information. Bret, we were talking a short time ago maybe about the National Guard.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi and from Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader. They are calling.
Chad, we're seeing a show of force, and this is the first time it's happened in 3 hours. And I come back to the question, why? And what would take so long?
Well, this is the balancing act that I talked about before. You know, there was quite a moment a couple of years ago when they finally confirmed Brett Kavanaugh. And you remember in October of 18, just the invective and just how volatile things were here. Mike Pence decided to go down the Senate steps. And there was a big crowd out there, and there were barricades. And one Capitol security official, very senior, said to me, they said, what would we have done had that group decided to forge across the barricade? Oh, there were officers there, but either you deploy violent or lethal force, or you let them, mob the vice president. And there was serious concern about that back in October of 18. Here, they just got overrun. This is an utter failure on behalf of U.S. Capitol Police and U.S. Capitol Security Forces.
Clearly. Yeah.
And it upended democracy on a very important day.
Noted. Thank you, Chad. David Spunt reporting from the FBI. Quote, the FBI has been deployed to assist U.S. Capitol Police partners as requested in protection of federal property and public safety. That's happening now. There was a lot moving. We're trying to keep a pace of it as best as possible. But as you can see from the last 3 hours, this has been quite a remarkable afternoon already. Back to Bret Baier with more information now. Bret, what do you have?
Our Pentagon team, Jen Griffin, Lucas Tomlinson, confirming the Defense Department has now mobilized the entire D.C. National Guard, 1,800 troops. Takes several hours, as I was mentioning before, to get them up and running. The Army Secretary Ron McCarthy is setting up a headquarters at the FBI. You just heard from David Spunt that the FBI is also